Welcome to Trending Update USA, I'm Stefan. What happens when one of the most talented players in the world says, openly and honestly, that what she's doing in practice just isn't showing up on match day? What does that tell us about the pressure, the expectations, and the mental load of modern professional tennis? That's exactly where Coco Gauff finds herself right now. Recently, she admitted frustration that the level she's reaching in practice sessions is not translating to the match court. On the surface, that might sound like a simple form issue. But when you look deeper, it becomes a powerful window into the psychological reality of elite sport. Let's briefly set the scene. Gauff, already a Grand Slam champion at a young age, has built a reputation for resilience, athleticism, and maturity far beyond her years. Expectations around her are enormous, from fans, sponsors, media, and even from herself. Yet, she has openly acknowledged that despite feeling sharp and confident in training, something shifts under match conditions. The rhythm changes. The freedom tightens. The results don't fully reflect the preparation. Now, this isn't a story about panic or collapse. It's about something far more common and far more human: the gap between potential and performance under pressure. In practice, the environment is controlled. There's repetition. There's safety. Mistakes don't carry consequences. Coaches give feedback in real time. There are no rankings points on the line, no headlines forming mid-rally, no thousands of eyes analyzing every move. Practice is where players experiment, refine, and build muscle memory. But matches? Matches are different. In competition, the brain becomes louder. Every miss forehand feels amplified. Every double fault echoes. The scoreboard becomes a psychological opponent. The crowd reacts. Social media reacts even faster. And for someone like Gauff, whose career has unfolded under global attention since her early teens, that pressure isn't theoretical, it's constant. This is where the conversation shifts from tennis mechanics to mental dynamics. When an athlete says, "It works in practice but not in matches," it usually signals tension between conscious control and instinct. In practice, movements are automatic. In matches, players sometimes overthink. They try to guide the ball instead of trusting their training. They hesitate for a split second. And at the highest level, that split second changes everything. For Gauff, the expectations are uniquely heavy. Since her breakthrough as a teenager, she hasn't just been a promising player, she has been positioned as a future face of the sport. Winning a major title confirmed that narrative, but it also intensified it. Once you win, the conversation changes from, "Can she do it?" to, "Why isn't she doing it every time?" That shift is subtle but powerful. We often underestimate how much consistency at the top level demands psychologically. The physical side of tennis is visible: speed, power, endurance. The mental side is quieter but often more decisive. Confidence isn't just about believing you can win, it's about staying calm when things don't go your way mid-match. When Gauff admits frustration, that honesty matters. In an era where athletes often feel pressure to present an image of constant control, acknowledging vulnerability takes courage. It also signals self-awareness. She's not denying the issue. She's naming it. And naming a problem is usually the first step towards solving it. Let's talk about the broader environment around her. Today's athletes are competing not just against opponents, but against narratives. Every performance is clipped, tweeted, analyzed, and debated within minutes. A tough loss becomes a trending topic. A technical flaw becomes a slow-motion breakdown on social media. For a young player like Gauff, that exposure started before adulthood. She grew up competing with cameras already pointed at her. That means the line between development and global judgment has always been thin. Social media adds another layer. Players don't just hear from coaches and family, they hear from millions of strangers. Some offer support. Others criticize harshly. Even if athletes avoid reading comments, the general tone of public conversation seeps in. Modern sports culture doesn't allow much space for quiet growth. When practice performance doesn't translate, it's easy for outside voices to speculate about coaching changes, technical flaws, or motivation. But often, the issue is more internal than technical. It's about how the nervous system reacts under competitive stress. Think about it like this: in practice, the body is relaxed. In matches, adrenaline spikes. Heart rate increases. Muscles tighten. Decision-making speeds up. The very intensity that makes competition exciting can also interfere with fine motor control and timing. That's not weakness. That's biology. Elite athletes work constantly to train their response to that stress. Visualization, breathing techniques, routines between points, these are not small details. They are survival tools at the top level. For Gauff, the frustration likely comes from knowing she has the level. She feels it in training. She sees it in flashes during matches. But sustaining it through an entire competitive performance is another challenge. And here's the important part: this phase is not unusual for champions. Many top players have gone through periods where practice dominance didn't fully translate to match consistency. The difference between good and great often lies in how they navigate these stretches. Do they panic and overhaul everything? Or do they stay patient and adjust incrementally? Gauff's tone suggests reflection rather than panic. That's a good sign. It's also worth remembering her age. Even though she's been on tour for years, she is still developing, physically, emotionally, strategically. We sometimes forget that because success came so early. When someone achieves greatness young, we expect permanent linear progress. But growth in elite sport is rarely linear. It's waves, adjustments, recalibrations. There's another dimension here: identity. When athletes tie their identity too tightly to performance, frustration can feel personal. A bad match doesn't just mean a tactical misstep, it feels like a failure of self. Learning to separate what I do from who I am is one of the hardest lessons in professional sport. Gauff has shown maturity in interviews before, speaking about perspective beyond tennis. That mindset may be crucial here. Because if she can approach this not as a crisis but as a puzzle, she can solve it without damaging confidence. Let's also acknowledge the business side. Endorsements, appearances, obligations, they all consume energy. Modern stars are brands as much as athletes. Balancing commercial commitments with performance focus is complex. While these opportunities are earned and deserved, they add layers of responsibility that previous generations didn't navigate in quite the same way. This isn't to suggest distraction. It's to highlight the ecosystem surrounding elite players today. Performance exists inside that ecosystem. There's also the media framing. When an athlete admits frustration, headlines can amplify the tension. But frustration is normal. In fact, it can be productive. It means standards are high. It means the athlete knows there's more available. What would be more concerning is indifference. In many ways, this moment reveals something encouraging about Gauff. She isn't hiding behind cliches. She's articulating the gap she feels. That transparency creates space for improvement. From a technical standpoint, translating practice to matches often requires simulating pressure in training, adding consequences to drills, creating scoreboard scenarios, practicing not just strokes, but emotions. Many top players talk about training the mind as deliberately as they train serves or returns. If Gauff and her team focus on that bridge between repetition and reality, the results can shift quickly. But beyond tactics, this story matters because it humanizes excellence. We watch elite athletes and assume their talent guarantees smooth progression. When they stumble or express doubt, it disrupts that illusion. Yet those moments are universal. Whether in sports, business, or creative work, many people experience the same disconnect, performing brilliantly in preparation but struggling when stakes rise. That's why this topic resonates beyond tennis. It's about handling expectation. It's about performing under observation. It's about learning that mastery includes managing nerves, not eliminating them. And for young fans watching Gauff, there's an important lesson here. Success doesn't remove struggle. Even champions refine, adjust, and question themselves. Growth continues after trophies. In the long term, how she responds to this period may shape her more than any single win. Adversity often sharpens competitive identity. It forces clarity about strengths and priorities. If anything, this phase could deepen her resilience. There's also a broader conversation about how we, as audiences, respond to athlete honesty. Do we treat vulnerability as weakness? Or do we see it as strength? The culture around sports is slowly shifting toward mental health awareness and emotional transparency. Statements like Gauff's contribute to that shift. They normalize the idea that performance is complex. At the highest level, margins are thin. Everyone trains hard. Everyone has talent. The differentiator is often composure in decisive moments. That composure isn't static, it's built and rebuilt over time. So when Gauff says practice isn't translating, it's not a confession of inability. It's a snapshot of a process in motion. The question isn't whether she has the tools. She clearly does. The question is how she integrates them under the spotlight. And make no mistake, the spotlight isn't dimming. If anything, it's intensifying. Women's tennis continues to evolve, with depth and unpredictability at the top. That competitive landscape adds urgency to every match. There are no easy rounds. Momentum shifts quickly. In that environment, mental steadiness becomes currency. As fans and commentators, it's tempting to demand immediate solutions. But development at this level requires patience. Micro-adjustments. Honest assessment. Trust in the long arc. From everything we've seen in her career so far, Gauff has the self-awareness and work ethic to navigate this. And perhaps that's the most important takeaway. This moment isn't about decline. It's about refinement. It's about recognizing that excellence isn't just built on highlight reels, it's constructed in the quiet tension between preparation and performance. It's about learning to carry practice freedom into competitive fire. For viewers, this conversation invites reflection. Where in our own lives do we feel that gap between preparation and execution? How do we respond when pressure changes our performance? Because whether you're stepping onto a tennis court, into a boardroom, or onto a stage, the principle is the same. Skill matters. Preparation matters. But managing the mind under pressure often matters most. Coco Gauff's honesty opens that discussion. And in a sports culture that often rewards perfection over transparency, that honesty is valuable. So as she works to align practice brilliance with match execution, the story isn't one of frustration alone. It's one of growth, awareness, and the ongoing challenge of performing under global scrutiny. That's why this matters beyond tennis. Because in the end, this isn't just about forehands and scorelines. It's about learning how to trust yourself when the lights are brightest. This is Stefan, and you're watching Trending Update USA.